Okay, another note, the NFL is still around. And as for what's going on in there right now, as you all know, Michael Strahan, one of the best the game has ever seen, retired. There's just not a better way to go out. He got the ring. He can go out saying that, the last thing he ever did was win a Super Bowl. The last sack he ever had was in a Super Bowl on the reigning most valuable player in a game where they completely shut down what was considered to be one of the greatest offenses, if not the greatest of all time. And, he can retire saying that he has the Giants' all time sack record, he has the single season sack record. Uh, he can retire saying, what else is there to accomplish? I've done everything. Short of, some goals that are obviously unreachable, like breaking Bruce Smith's sack record or, whatever. But there's not a better way to go out. And, he joins Brett Favre and Warren Sapp as people that have retired this offseason. And today, Jonathan Ogden announced he was going to retire. And, what a special player he is. He reinvented the left tackle position, helped Baltimore win a Super Bowl some years ago, and was just completely dominant at the left tackle position. One of the best we've ever seen. And in 5 years, think about that Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Sapp, Strahan, Favre, and Ogden. And who else might retire this offseason? You got Derek Brooks. Is he going to retire? Maybe, I don't know, Orlando Pace has had enough with all these injuries. Probably not, though. It's going to be a very, very good group of Hall of Fame inductions. And really, that's about all that's going on. T.O. got his contract extension. Pac-Man got cleared for some practices. Nothing really worth talking about. I got a couple requests from a couple users, though, to talk about, well, the Stupid Bacon wants me to talk about the Texans, and I believe it's DBig76 wants me to talk about the Buffalo Bills. So, here I go. I'll kick things off with the Buffalo Bills. One thing that strikes me about the Bills is that they're a team that knows plugging in these rookies and undrafted players and players you probably have never heard is not the worst thing you can do. Like, I think a good example of this is, I believe his name is George Wilson. Last year, never played a snap at safety before. First game of his career at safety, he picks off Tony Romo and returns it for a touchdown. Later that season, he picked up a fumble and returned it for a touchdown and went on IR. And that's just one example. They're a great example of a team that realizes that playing these fresh rookies, maybe they're not experienced, maybe they haven't really played the position before, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get burned every single time they get anywhere near the ball. It doesn't mean they're going to screw up every time. They're probably still competent. So they do a great job at that. George Teague being one example. And, they'll also plug in other no-name players like, what's the name of that cornerback? Jabari Greer? Not too many people knew about him, but he was kind of the number one cornerback this year. And he played pretty well. And let's see, as for what I look at for the Bills to do in the future, they're a team on the rise, I think. They're playing a too tough a division to ever win. It's not a very good division. It's pretty easy to finish second, which they did last year. They did finish second and were in contention for a postseason spot until a couple weeks to go. Offensively, I like J.P. Lossman more than most, but his time in Buffalo is up. For one reason or another, he just doesn't fit in with what they want to do. They found what they think is a good player in Trent Edwards. Time for them to just part ways, and, where's he going to go now? Chicago? They got a bad quarterback situation. Maybe he could squeeze out a starting spot. It's not going to be easy to find a job at this point, but I think it's time for Trent Edwards to go. He's already shown to be a reasonably good quarterback. So that's pretty much that right there. Marshawn Lynch, assuming this DUI trouble isn't an issue. Is obviously a rising star. Probably every bit as good as Adrian Peterson. Peterson just ran behind a better line and was in a much better situation. Maybe a little worse than AP, but also looking at the rest of their team, I like their offensive line. They've spent a lot of money there. Jason Peters, what's the name of the guard? I think Derek Dockery. They pumped a lot of money in there, and they're improving. Their run blocking's good. Their pass blocking's getting better. They need more receiving options, obviously. They don't have a true pass catching tight end. Closest thing they have is Robert Royal, who's a really good blocking tight end, but doesn't catch many passes. Lee Evans, I think, is a superstar in the making. Hauls in a lot of great catches. Is a fantastic deep threat. They need more beyond that, though. It's been too much Peerless Price, too much Roscoe Parrish, these tweener players. It doesn't work. And defensively, I like their tenacity. They're a young team that doesn't have much talent, but they're scrappy, and they're the kind of team that can really just piss you off because you don't think they're very good, and maybe they're not very good, but they'll get sacks on you. They'll make you turn it over, and these players you've never heard of are just going to come out of nowhere and just make your life a living hell. And they do have good players too. Schobel, I think Puslosny is a star on the rise. Keith Ellison, they got good safeties. But again, their players get hurt a lot, and they don't have a problem plugging in these guys that we may or may not have heard of. Now for the Texans, I think that's all I got to say about the Bills, beyond the fact that they have really good special teams, really entertaining to watch, Parrish and McGee. I don't think they're ready for the playoffs quite yet. Maybe they can squeeze out the 6th seed. They're obviously not going to win the division, but they're going to be close. They're going to be there at the end, along with teams like Cleveland and maybe Denver, actually. Texans. It's difficult to say. Last year they would have been in the playoffs if they were in another division. I mean, they had to play in the most competitive division in the league. Maybe it's that or the NFC East. Colts, Titans, Jaguars, and Houston was just the odd man out. They're not a bad team. They went 8-8. They did a lot of good things, some bad things. But they were the worst team in the divisions by a small amount, and they were just not good enough. But I don't know what to expect from them. They had to play a lot of Sage Rosenfels last year, and he did a good job for them. But it makes you wonder, does this mean Matt Schaub is not good, or has Matt Schaub just not gotten a chance? Matt Schaub is an Engema. We don't know. So he's one of those big signings that needs to pay off. Ahman Green, I think his time in this league is just about up. I would just cut him. He's obviously not going to produce enough to justify that contract. I'd cut him and try and pick up a guy like Kevin Jones or even Ron Dane. I don't think Ron Dane is that awful of a player. I think in the right situation he could play pretty well. Let's see, what else do we got here? Houston. I think they had an okay draft. I think they reached a little bit for the tackle that they picked, but sometimes you got to reach a little bit. Just bite the bullet and take who you need, and they do need to improve their offensive line. They've got great wide receiver depth. Behind Andre Johnson, who's a superstar, you got players like Kevin Walter. I don't know most of their names, but when they were forced into situations where they had to produce, they could produce. I'm thinking of the guy, Andre something. I don't know their names because they're not big names, but when they're forced into action, which they were last year, they can make plays. Let's see, defensively, Dunta Robinson is probably a really quality player, but his loss, that injury is going to hurt him for the rest of his career. It's going to hurt Houston quite a bit because they depended on his skills to do what they did, because other than that, their secondary is just awful. Except for Fred Bennett. I think he's a good rookie cornerback, but their safeties I don't like. Mario Williams, great kid, great head on his shoulders. Had to fill the void that Reggie Bush kind of created when the Texans didn't take him, and he's playing really well. Great player. D'Amico Ryans, he's coming along as well. So I think the Texans probably another 8-8 season. That's what I gotta say. See ya.